chapter 15. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. This is so true. How you react when someone is upset or someone is angry, when they're angry, how you react will determine how the conversation goes. So if someone is very upset and they're like, "What's going on?" and you're like, "I'm confused. Like, what exactly are you trying to say?" Calms the situation down. But if a person is angry, what is going on? And you return going, "What's your problem?" And there's this back and forth yelling. It doesn't turn away wrath, but a soft answer turns away wrath. And something so important for us to remember, like if we want to calm the situation down, we need to use a soft answer. Otherwise, we all find ourselves in this anger, this upset. Everyone is angry and everyone's yelling at each other, and rather than just being calm. And so it's a really good proverb to always keep in mind. A soft answer turns away wrath. Much easier to have in your mind than to actually apply. So this is where wisdom, like God, give me the wisdom that when people are angry, I'm able to reply back in a soft answer just to turn away wrath. So it's a good principle to put in our hearts. But a harsh word stirs up anger, right? The tongue of the wise uses knowledge rightly, but mouth of fools pours forth foolishness. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. This is pretty good in its assurance, and the word keeping watch. It's not like God is like sitting there like a peeping tom, or He's present always. In other words, He knows what is going on in our lives, both in the evil and in the good, and He makes all things work together for His purpose. We may not understand what and why, but they do. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. How you speak, again, you can see the common denominator here. It's how you speak and what you say, especially in the book of Proverbs, is so important in what comes out of your lips and how you react. So these are important points. Christians should always remember and how when you're speaking and what you're saying makes a big difference. A fool despises his father's instruction, but he who receives correction is prudent. In the house of the righteous there is much treasure, but in the revenue of the wicked is trouble. Okay, so look at this. The house of the righteous, there's much treasure, different, but in the revenue of the wicked is trouble. So both can be wealthy, both can have finances, but one is a treasure and the other one is nothing but trouble. So you put money in the hands of a wicked person, you put money in the hands of a person who is not right spiritually, then you're going to find that that money is going to be used for nothing but trouble and problems. But you put that money in the hands of the righteous, that money is going to be used for whatever God has in store for that. And that makes a big difference on whether God prospers you or not in your life by how you use that money. How do you use the money that God gives you? Are you using it for your own pleasure? Are you using it for your own, wickedness or your own lust or your own flesh? It doesn't even have to be wickedness. It could be just you're consumed in your own indulgences and lusts and buying this and buying that, and just you just want the best of this and the best of that rather than focusing and trusting in the things of God. So these are things that you need to remember. The lips of the wise disperse knowledge, but the heart of a fool does not do so. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is His delight. And the wicked, if you're not living your life for God, if you're like living a life of wickedness and evil, you may be like, well, I give to the church, and I do this, and I give, and I'm a good person, I give this, and I give that, and I sacrifice my time. Okay, great, that's all good stuff. But if you're not living for Christ, if you're not living for God, and you are wicked, it doesn't matter what you give. An abomination, the wicked sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord. It reminds me of a story King Saul. King Saul was told by Samuel, listen, I need you to stay and wait, and I will be there. King Saul decided, well, I'm going to go sacrifice and do the thing because I can't wait any longer. And Samuel comes over to King Saul, and he says to King Saul, what are you doing? He goes, well, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm sorry. I got the stories mixed up. What ends up happening is God says to Samuel, to Saul, go and kill everything you have. Or, I mean, everything. Go kill Agag and all his people. There, I get the story right. So God tells Samuel to go tell Saul to go into and kill Agag, the Amorites, all of them. Just wipe them all out. Don't leave anything. Cattle, everything. So what does Saul do? He decides to keep certain animals alive and a king alive. And then he goes over to Samuel's and he goes, oh, God is good, I've done what you told me to do. And then Samuel goes, why do I hear sheep? Why do I hear donkeys? And why is this king alive? And he goes, well, I wanted to sacrifice these animals to the Lord and the people, blah, 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 blah. And Saul was making excuses. Samuel replied, obedience is better than sacrifice. He wasn't being obedient. He thought, well, I'm going to do it my way, but I'll sacrifice and I'll make it okay. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. I mean, being raised in a religion where you're taught, oh, if you sin, go and say this 10 of these and 5 of these, or go and do this and you're going to be okay. That's not how it works. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord. It's an abomination. But the prayer of the upright is his delight. So it's important how you live your life and what you do, whether or not your sacrifices, your givings, and all that is worthy. Look at Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel, they both came and brought sacrifices to the Lord. Cain's was rejected, Abel's was accepted. Then when Cain got upset, what did God say to him? Hey, if you do what is right, will you not your sacrifice be accepted? Folks, this has always been from the beginning. How you live your life depends on how God receives your sacrifice. Why? Because the way of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord. The way, it's an abomination. But he loves him who follows righteousness. What are you following in this life? Right? Harsh discipline is for him who forsakes the way, and he who hates correction will die. So a person gets, sometimes you get rebuked very harshly when you forsake the way, but it's good because he who hates that correction will die. If a person is correcting you for doing wrong, then you do what is right, you're going to be good. But if you hate that correction, you're going to end up in the wrong path. Hell and destruction are before Yahweh. So how much more the hearts of the sons of men? A scoffer does not love one who corrects him, nor will he go to the wise. And this is so important because a person who's a scoffer or thinks they're a know-it-all, they're not going to go to one. They're not going to go to the one who corrects them. They're also not going to go to people who are wise because they know that if they go ask for advice from them, they're going to get the advice that they're supposed to have, and sometimes they'd rather not go. We've all heard the saying, forgiveness is better than permission, or something like that. You go and just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Some people say that. Well, that's not true. It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And that's what some people don't want permission. Some people don't want advice. They'd rather do the thing, and if they do wrong, they go, oh, well, I messed up. Yeah, well, no, you messed up way before you even messed up. You messed up by not getting advice. So you messed up twice. You messed up by not getting advice, and then you messed up doing what you're doing. See, a scoffer doesn't want to get advice. A scoffer doesn't want to be corrected. So they're going to withhold things and keep them to themselves rather than going and getting advice and saying certain things. That's a big difference in people. Has anyone ever popped something to you and said, and you're like, what? What the heck are you talking about? It's because they didn't want to get advice. They didn't want to get counsel, and because that, they find themselves in the wrong end. A merry heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow, the spirit is broken. Amen. Like, if your heart is good, you're going to have that cheerful countenance about you. your face. Now, of course, I know there's some people who have resting faces, weird resting faces that look like they're angry. But, a good heart, a funny heart, or a heart that likes to laugh and enjoy life, they're going to see cheerful, you're going to see their countenance about them. The heart of man, him who has understanding, seeks knowledge, but the mouth of fool feeds on foolishness. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but he who is of merry heart has a continual feast. And again, look at the heart and how the heart is so important on what happens on the outside. Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure with trouble. Ain't that the truth? Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a fatted calf with hatred. So, in other words, if you're sitting with loved ones, it is better to be a vegetarian and eat vegetables. You may not like vegetables, but the people around you, you love them, right? It is better to do that than to sit with a big, beautiful feast, but the people around you is hatred. This is also not only just on the table, folks. It's everywhere. Your friends, your workplace, your church, your family, everything. Every place you go. Sometimes it is better to take a little where there's love than a lot where there's hatred. And this is so true. It's a principle that sometimes we need to sacrifice because it is better to be around people who are loving than people who have hatred or contentions or evil in their hearts. A wrathful man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger always allays contention, right? So a person who's wrathful, they always want to fight, 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 fight. But if you're slow to anger, you allay contention, you hold it back. The way of the lazy man is a hedge of thorns, but the way of the upright is a highway. Again, lazy, the difference here, the contrast is lazy and upright. The difference is the lazy person has nothing but thorns, lets things die around them, but a person who's working, person who's upright, they're always looking to improve. They're always looking to grow and to build. A wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish man despises his mother, right? And this is so true. Like when a son does good, the father's like, yes, but when the son goes wrong, the mom is hurt. The father's like, jerk, whatever. Different relations. Folly is joy to him who is destitute of discernment, but a man of understanding walks upright. Okay, folly is to him who destitute of discernment. So if you don't have discernment, if you're not judging things in your life, discernment is another word for judging. If you're destitute of judgment, I don't want to judge. You got to judge people. You got to judge things in your life. You got to be a person who discerns, like, am I going to be around these people or not? And if you're destitute of discernment, you're going to find yourself around folly. It says, without counsel, plans go awry. But in the multitude of counselors, they are established. Like, the more advice you get from people who are good, with wise counselors, the better success you will have. A man has joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season, how good it is. That's so true. The way of life winds upward for the wise, that he may turn away from hell below. True. It's like God builds up this wind for you to raise you up so that you can turn away from hell below. Yahweh will destroy the house of the proud, but he will establish the boundary of the widow. The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but the words of the pure are pleasant. That's so true. Wicked thoughts, these things that we go through in our mind, like, these are things that we need to get rid of and ask God, like, remove these wicked thoughts and ideas from our mind so that what comes out of the mouth are pure and pleasant. He who is greedy for gain troubles his own house, but he who hates bribes will live. And this is so true, because even in the New Testament, I know I'm always saying this is so true, but even in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul writes to Timothy, and he says, listen, those people who seek to be rich fall into diverse temptations and trials, even shipwrecking their faith, even destroying it, because they're greedy and they're coveting and everything. One of the commandments, the last commandment in the Bible is, thou shalt not covet. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, wife, family, donkey, maidservant, manservant, etc. Why? Because coveting, I want that. I want that is nothing but greed. It's greedy, and that causes nothing but problems. The heart of the righteous studies how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours pours forth evil. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoice the heart, and a good report makes the bones healthy. How what you see these your eyes and what you're looking at are important. What are you looking at and what are you watching and what are you these change your heart. If your eyes are just consumed in the world and the things of the world and I always tell my kids, like, you got to be careful you're not being pulled away into the world, because you're like, oh, what's the latest fashions, what's the latest car, what's the latest this, what's the latest that, trying to get to become the latest. I mean, look at why there's so many trends on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or X or whatever it is. The trends, because people see and they're like, oh, I want popularity, I want to get those shoes, I want to do that thing, I want, even if it's stupid, oh, they're eating Tide Pods, I want to eat a Tide Pod. Oh, I wanted that. I want to do that. So this video is probably going to be, age just by me saying that. They're like, oh, I remember back in 2024, 23, whatever. The ear that hears the rebukes of life will abide among the wise. He who disdains instructions despises his own soul, but he who heeds rebuke gets understanding. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility. And, this is so true because, again, when you're fearing the Lord, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's the instruction of wisdom. But before honor is humility. And what this is saying is, before someone receives honor, they must be humble. And that's why the Bible says God resists the proud but exalts the humble, right? He lifts up the humble. The humble is going to listen to the instructions of wisdom, and the humble who listens to the instructions of the wisdom will rise up to honor. You're not going to get honor. You're not humble. You're not going to get honor, and then you'll be humble. You start with humility first, and then you are honored. And before honor is humility. Start with that.